If you had to kind of maybe put on a crystal ball, Larry, how would you guess kind of 5 years from now that sales is going to change?
Well, really good question. I would say I'm going to take kind of the here and now, right now, right? We're in my humble opinion, and I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination, but I pay attention enough to know that we're in and heading into probably a super difficult time in selling. We've seen it in 2000, we saw it in 2008. And, I think this is a time where the fundamentals actually really pay off, where you as a sales rep or as a company, invest in those deals that are winnable. I think, super strong adherence to things like Medic. I think this is where tools like Decision Link are absolutely critical, because you're going to be fighting for smaller budgets. Companies are going to be, really shy to spend money because they're trying to figure out how and to weather the storm and how long the storm is going to last and those sorts of things. So I guess the way I think about it is, those fundamental selling capabilities, I don't think those have changed much over the course of time. I think the way customers buy, it has changed what we sell to them, how we sell to them. The one thing I would say that I do think is coming is, in the SaaS world, we're doing these subscription contracts and they tend to be term-based. I think utility models are going to consume us all. And it's going to be based on how much of your service am I using and whether people like it or not. I think it's coming. So I think we have to be prepared for that and understand what that means. And I think, back to our discussion around customer success, that organization becomes even that much more important, right? Because now you're really selling month to month versus, even just, hey, we got a renewal coming in 3 years. So my 2 cents, we'll see.
Definitely. And it's interesting. Some of the companies I deal with now, it's, age old, the reps say, oh, the deals are pushing. But, a lot of the basics that you just went through, I mean, those are just, kind of tried and true. And for lack of better words, I'd say I think sales is, in a lot of companies, is just turning into being sloppy. I do a weekly post. Agreed. I might be old school, but it's like every time it's not rocket science, right? But it's like, how can you not be on a call and book the next follow-up call? How do you not do a prompt recap note? How do you not have an agenda? These are just all, it's like the selling the product, it's kind of the, should be the hard thing, but many times the hard thing is, okay, just do all the basic stuff that has been around forever. Crazy.
Yeah, anyway. Agreed.
So MJ, what about you? If you had to put your look in your crystal ball, what would you say how sales is going to change?
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you on parts of that. For the customer success side, I completely agree. And even if the market doesn't fully switch to a utility model, I think Larry's absolutely right in that the philosophy of that and like the desire of having that from the customer side is always going to continue to exist, and justifying the spend is going to be more difficult even on a renewal side if the relationship is strong. So what I've been kind of looking at with a few of the companies I'm working with right now actually is, while they're projecting out their hiring plans and their targets for the next couple of years, a lot of, and I think this is a mistake a lot of smaller companies make, is they think more reps equal more revenue, and that's not necessarily the kind of one-to-one ratio. So I think if you have really good reps, and to your point, Randy, where things are getting sloppy, if you can find the ones that are really good and elevate them while then investing heavier on the headcount in customer success to help kind of balance that weight of existing book of business, that's where I see kind of successful companies moving to.
Great. And, Larry, I think you already have touched on or covered it, but anything else you'd add to the importance of value selling?
No, I mean, to me, it's just core and fundamental to the selling period. And, as I work with early stage companies, that's the first thing I hit them on is, all right, you've identified a problem. Well, what's the cost of the problem? What's the value of solving the problem? All those sorts of things. And if you can't articulate that, you're going to struggle to get deals closed. So that's where I really ask them to spend a lot of time in that area. So I think it's super important.
Great. And then I'll also point out, Larry, just popped in my head. Unfortunately, I had it right next to me. So I can't do my screen here. But anyway, so you kindly contributed to a book last summer, your go-to sales advisor, which anybody can go to salescommunity.com and you can click on book and you can check it out there. But your two awesome submissions were, one was value realization, which I think we touched on. And then another good one is around team building, analyzing candidates during the interview process. So anything you want to comment about that?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit around Peter's question, sort of the 4 areas that I think about and I evaluate on, some being negotiable, some being, non-negotiable. So that's kind of the same thing. The one, I guess, additional point I'd add on the value realization thing is, Decision Link, right, or tools like that are going to help you kind of build that business case. Value realization is kind of the backward looking for those add-on sales to say, we told you we're going to save you X, we saved you 2X. See how great we are, and hey, let's go do some more.
Yeah.
Great. So we have a question from Terry. Just joined. Thank you, Terry. Congrats on your MBA. At what point in their fast growth should a successful U.S. SaaS startup look at exporting to new markets such as Canada or EMEA, in your opinion? I'm going to chime in first because I've seen the bad side of this, which is the CEOs always think, oh, I got to expand, but a bunch of examples I can think of, but we had one Giant Loop where US we're doing well. Okay, we got to go over to London, right? So you go London, but then in pursuit of deals, the resource and the time and constraints and everything else. So I'd almost say wherever you're based, kind of start there. Get great penetration in with the customers that are there, and then expand. Don't be in any huge rush to get to Canada or get to EMEA until you have the product market fit, until you have the process, until you have the scalability. So those are some of my thoughts. MJ, any different opinions or anything to add?
Yeah, I would say also like having the market dictate some of that where the need is. So for LifeRaft, my most recent venture, we are a Canadian company, but we did 90% of our business in the US. So just even understanding how to sell. So I'll give kind of a funny example of when we first started selling. Our reps were very Canadian. So they were very conservative, I would say, in how they did reach outs, how they interacted with customers or prospects. And we really had to change that and be more kind of American and more outward in how we were dealing with the market. On the flip side of that, if you're looking to enter a market like Canada, it is kind of just understanding the audience and how you speak to them or how you approach them does need to align with how they do business. And I'd say even more so on the European side for all the reasons you just listed, Randy. Each of those kind of countries is a very different culture. It's a different set of regulations, different structure in how they buy things. So understanding the market and what barriers there might be, what the exchange and kind of currency impact is going to be when you're looking at how you're going to enter them or what you think the ROI is in that market is really important, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when I was thinking back too, when I in my EMC days in the fall of 1985, I got parachuted over to London, and they said, "Okay, you're going to sell all over Europe, right?" So I go through the French stuff and the German stuff. I'm like, this isn't going to work, especially back then. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus in England. And then at the time, I had John McAllister was my boss, basically running Europe, and he came to me after I don't know, probably 3 or 6 months, and he drew a circle around London. And he said, at the time we were selling memory for System 38 computers, which is an IBM computer. He said, hey, if you just focus here, the number of sales calls that you can do, the market is more than you can cover. Because I'd be driving to Wales and Scotland and all over the place. But there's something to be said for just that pure focus perspective for sure. Larry, anything to add?
I agree a lot with what you both said. I mean, the whole idea of the game is revenue acquisition, right? And I think sometimes, especially early stage founders get wrapped around the idea of wanting to be a global company and, hey, we sell in all these different countries. And they lose sight of the fact that the whole goal is to capture revenue. And especially if you're a US based company launching here, there's a ton of opportunity just within this country. So, why stretch yourself out resource wise and everything else before you need to? And I agree with what MJ said. The market will push you into other areas. You start getting inbound leads from Canada and EMEA, and it's to a volume that you go, hey, it makes sense to expand there. Then there you go.
There you go. All right, Terry. Thanks for the question. Now, what about speaking of value selling? So for each of you, if you're in the CFO of a client with your new consulting gigs, and you had 20 seconds to tell about the value that you offer, I'll go to Larry while MJ's coughing. Larry, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I already kind of hit on it during the introduction of, instead of going and hiring a sales leader and consuming a large percent of what you just raised as a seed round, hire individual contributors. They're going to be the real revenue drivers. You can bring someone in like me as a consultant to, at a lower cost point that has all the experience of a sales leader you're going to bring in, and let's get the foundation in place and wait till you're ready. So it turns into a cost play, ultimately, and capital preservation play.
There you go. MJ?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think using alternative resources to kind of get your house in order before hiring in very expensive resources to kind of help develop that strategy moving forward is what I would lean to as well. And in a smaller stage company, having tactical people is very important. Like, they need to be able to do it. So if you can supplement the talent pool with an outside consultant, for example, to help direct and structure and audit what it is that you're doing, I think that that's a win-win for the company.
Yeah, and especially your case, that whole sales ops side. I mean, you need to know. A lot of times people can get the data. I always say, looking through the rear view mirror, but the idea is, okay, where are you headed? What's going on? And that insight is invaluable, especially earlier stage companies, for sure. What about any examples of maybe a couple, one or two sales leaders that you respect and why? Larry?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton over time. I mean, Randy, you're definitely somebody that I've learned a ton through over the course of the years. Peter Brennan's on here. Work with Peter at HPE. He's a phenomenal sales leader and a guy that I'd say I've learned from. Peter Quirk, who as well, has been a great resource for me. A guy named Dave Williamson that I met at Rational Software years and years ago, and recently retired from IBM. And the last one I would say is a gentleman named Gary Swart, who's now in the VC world. Really helped me early in my career to kind of be focused and understand what I needed to do, and really sort of got me into the whole idea of value selling, way back when. So there's a handful of people.
There you go. MJ?
So I would say I actually found a bunch in one company. So just by fortune, I was working very closely with Securitas as an organization, and some of their regional presidents and how they treat clients, and like Dwayne Goldsby is one that comes to mind, really helped structure kind of my thoughts around how to treat clients, but also what it means to have things switch or change, and what your roster of people should look like. From like a macro view, I'd say they're not traditional salespeople. Rand Fishkin is one person that I kind of look up to and read his blogs quite regularly. And then Ryan Walsh, who I think he's the CEO of RepView. On his LinkedIn, he actually has like recovering CRO. So I think he's gone through a lot of the player coach side and understands that. And it comes, I think his LinkedIn is hilarious, but his kind of insights on sales reps is very appropriate.
Awesome. So with sales, we talked about rev ops, but I think we definitely got to talk about some of the tools. So MJ, I think you're kind of biased. Some of your favorites are ZoomInfo and Salesforce. Yeah,
I mean, Salesforce, I think as long as it's a good CRM that's tooled correctly, that could be whatever you need it to be. In my experience, it has been Salesforce. I've also seen that executed very poorly, and it's kind of a reflection of that. So I think whatever kind of CRM you're going for, as long as everything is like super clean and cut, and making sure that those definitions and stages are well understood across departments. It is wild how infrequent marketing people are either in Salesforce or understand some of the stages of a CRM. So I think connecting those within the group helps optimize the tools. And then ZoomInfo, I'd say through the pandemic and going into whatever the next stage of kind of society is, ZoomInfo, knowing who you're going after and what is the value to sell to them becomes really important. So the more intel that you can gather on the individual that you're trying to connect with is kind of why I like ZoomInfo.
Great. And Larry, I think you've already covered off decision links, so maybe talk about Gong and Outreach as some of your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what I'm always thinking about is, and MJ talked about this, of, hey, let's go hire a bunch of salespeople and hope it all works out well. I've always been more focused on the idea of, productivity and sales rep productivity, and that spans over into the SDI world as well. So, around the whole enablement function and tools that help you to get smarter, faster. And I think Gong, is one of those sorts of tools, and sort of the recording and coaching and outreach is another one that I think is super, super valuable. But to me, that's, any tool that helps you do that. I think I struggle more with the idea, we didn't used to have a ton of tools back in the day. Now there's a whole market of tools, and it's, you can go overboard as well. So I think finding the right balance is key.
Yeah, and I think that plays very much into what we've been talking about is you're going to do a needs assessment at the end of the year on what that tech stack is, and renew based on whatever the value or the utility that you're getting out of it. So I think it's a bit of a full circle.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much. So maybe last question, I'd like to say if there's any PG Randy story. Larry?
So the one that came to mind for me, and this isn't, I don't know, this is if it's so much a funny story as much of I think everybody that knows you, Randy, will go, yep, that's totally Randy. But so this is back in, after Storage Tech had been acquired by Sun. As I mentioned earlier, I was working in Joel Kimball's group that was storability and storage resource management software, and we'd taken on a few other packages of software at Sun, and we had the whole team together there in Burlington at Sun campus, and Joel had Randy scheduled to come in and talk to the team, and you were leading, I think, financial services at the time, right?
Probably, yeah.
Just kind of talk about a little bit about value selling and how can we do better with what we were doing on the software side. And you'd had your knee scoped, I think, the day before, and Randy came in, and he made a commitment, and boy, he showed up, and he may have had a Vicodin or two, flowing through the system to keep the pain low, but it was a good session. It was focused, and everybody enjoyed it and learned a ton. And to me, that was just more of hey, Randy made a commitment, and knee surgery or not, he was there. So that's my Randy story I remember.
Thanks. As long as I didn't say anything inappropriate. So then MJ,
not that I recall.
There you go. And MJ, we haven't really known each other long enough, so I don't think.
I don't have any Vicodin stories, unfortunately, not yet at least.
There you go. So anyway, so Larry and MJ, that's been great. Certainly wish you the best of luck in your consulting endeavors. Whoever gets to work with you will definitely be very lucky and get lots of value from you. So next week we have episode 98, Diana Shapiro, who's CEO of Dynam AI, and Eric Brock, who's CEO of Ondas, and he's also on the board of Dynam AI. And then rounding it out the following week, Annalise Hussman, who's at Gong. And then for our 100, I guess, episode celebration, you could say, Carl Eschenbach, who's at Sequoia, on tons of boards, has done great. A lot of us know him from VMware days. So anyway, so MJ and Larry, thanks so much. Everybody that's been watching along either on this live or on the recording, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And thanks to Decision Link. And if you're not members of the sales community yet, go join. Have a great one.